So next up, we're going to see what modules are, and I'm going to create a new file, call it modules.py. And in this modules.py, I'm going to, so first of all, let me explain what modules are. In Python, we use different modules, whether they are built-in modules for Python or you install any of them. You use them in order to use specific functions or variables or dictionaries from these modules. So for example, we have OS module, so we import these modules this way, like import OS, or we have time module, right, import time, or we have JSON, which is another module, import JSON, and so many other different kinds of modules. We have also math, one of the other important modules for using mathematical functions. And so for example, if you want to get pi number which equals 3.14, then you will need math module. You write math.py, and you can print this out, print the number. Let me print it out. Or you want to use many different mathematical functions. So Python 3 modules.py. As you can see, it prints out the float number of the pi, which is one of the mathematical important numbers for many different triangular calculations. But this is not the subject of our tutorial. We're going to talk about modules. So here we import different modules. We can also define different modules. So for example, here in our last tutorials, we have created a file called kindsofvariables.py. So here, for example, I want to access a from kindsofvariables.py. So let us see if that is possible. So I can import, and notice that the kind of module that you want to import here, except from the ones that you install and are built-in Python functions, the ones that you write it by yourself needs to be in the directory of your code, or you need to somehow address the directory of that module or code that you have written. So here I import kinds of variables, and I'm going to save this. The name is very long. I can change the name to a smaller one. I'm going to talk about that, but here for now let's print a from kinds of variables and write .a here to be able to access that variable from this module. So if you write print a, you won't be able to access it. However, you have imported the function kinds of variables. So you need to write kinds of variables, the name of the module, dot the variable or the function that you want to use. So let's see here what happens. As you can see, a is printed out twice because in the last part we also did the same. So let me comment this one and rerun it for you to see it better. As you can see, 2 7s are printed out. Here, as you can see, we had this module. So even if you comment this one and you import the function, it's very much interesting because as you can see, 7 is printed out. Why? Because we had a function here which worked here for us in the module, which is very interesting. And if you print out A again, then you'll have 7 twice. So you might wonder why we have 2 7s when we have printed A only once. The reason is when we import kinds of variables, it's going to print out 7 once for us, and that is quite interesting. Okay, anyway, the other reason is A is inside this function, so because it is not defined outside of the function, so the function needs to run, so as a result A will be printed out. So we can also access the methods of the functions from the modules. So here I can write print, or instead of that I can say that, for example, I can run the function kinds of variables dot function, and then we have parentheses as well. So this is the method related to this module. So let's see what happens here if I run the function. And also we can uncomment this print here and comment the print from outside of the function. As you can see, we have 3 7s, one for this A, the other one for the printing A, and the other one for importing the module. So here, let me comment this one and see what happens. We have 2 7s. But here, because we have also executed the function from the module that we've imported, which is also going to print A, so as a result we will have 3 7s printed out. And let me do it again for you to see. As you can see, 3 7s are printed out. So we can get pretty much everything from this module, whether it's a variable, a dictionary, a function, a method, a class. You can do everything. So for example, we had in our previous tutorials, we had class.py, and so we had player. So let's see, for example, whether we can access these classes from this class.py. So first I need to import class with capital C, because the name of the class is that. So let me comment these other printings and executions. So here, let's see what we can do with the class. So we have a number of variables like name, height, and team from the player class. So let's see what we can do here. So here, when we wanted to get a class, we could write C equals player, and we could have written the name of the player, the height, the team, and so on. So here, in order to write C, we should first, and write the player, we should write class.player, and let's see how that works here. So I'm going to copy this and save this code and paste it here. So here, as you can see, our script does not know what player is, but once I write class.player, so it is not unknown anymore. Class.player, and let me also close the parentheses and see what happens here. Awesome, interesting. So here, as you can see the result of this one. Wayne Rooney was the player of Manchester United, and his height is 174. So let me change, for example, this one to Cristiano Ronaldo, and probably change this one to 180. 180, for example, and let's see what happens. So still we can see that this class here, class.player, is run. Probably we need to change the variable. Let's see what happens in this one. Probably it won't access the class, but it's going to run the class here that we have imported, and so it executes the player function, the player class. So again we have the same result. So here we cannot give the class that those kind of variables that we want. And here the reason is that if you notice in the class.py we had also a function, and in order to see that kind of result, so for example Wayne Rooney was the player of Manchester United, we needed to print it out. So in order to print it out we needed to also execute the function which was inside of the player class. So here we had, for example, c1.new function. So just the same here we can write the new function for the modules. So probably it has got a bit complicated, but I'm going to summarize it so that you can easily understand what happens here. So we have the class that we have imported, we have player, which is the name of the class, and we have the new function, which you can see it here, and it's going to print out this kind of result for you. So let's see what happens. Probably we haven't got an argument here, so it takes one positional argument, but three has been given. Okay, here we are defining the class variables, so we shouldn't execute the function from here, and here we can write a. So here we had class.player, so we defined our class here from the class that we had in the modules, in the class module. So here we can write a.new function, so we can execute the function from the object that we have created using the class. We've got player class, we've got from the class module, and now as you can see, Cristiano was the player of Manchester United and his height is 180. So let me also add Ronaldo so that it's much more clear. Cristiano Ronaldo was the player of Manchester United and his height is 180. And I'm not sure about the numbers. Again, I'm telling you, I don't know anything about the players. I'm just writing it out of just some guesses. Anyway. So here we used, so for example, we can also use any other modules if it has classes. So for example, the kinds of variables has a certain class. So I'm going to use that, the name of the module, the name of the class inside of that module. Then I'm going to give it the variables that it should have, and then I'm going to execute the function if it has any function, or if it doesn't have any function, I'm going to anyway create this kind of object from this class here, player. And if it has a function, I can run it as well. So here, as you can see in the other module, which was kinds of variables, we ran this function, and it is like the methods in Python as well. It has parentheses for functions, and for variables there are no parentheses. Notice that here I can also import C1, and I can print, for example, C1 dot team. So C1 has been defined here in the class.py. So in order to access this one, I can simply write print, and then the first thing I need to do is to define the module, write the module name, and then after that the variable's name, and then I can write the attributes of that class that has been defined. So the variable that we want is the team. So C1 was for, I think, C1 was for Wayne Rooney, and we want to know his team. Let's see whether his team can show up here in the print. So as you can see, the last result is Manchester United, and his team as a result is Manchester United. That's it. So here we've learned how to work with modules, how to call different variables, how to call different functions from it. And so, for example, you have a very, very long code in this one, and it contains a lot of classes, and you call it classes.py. Here you can simply import that class and use different classes, different variables, different functions inside of those classes, and use it inside of your code. This is very handy and useful, especially when you're working with the more complex kind of softwares where you want to have different classes, and then you want to get use of that those classes, and create different objects from those classes. Those classes are going to construct different, make you able to construct different objects in different frames, which are the classes. And you can use all of those objects with the features and attributes that they have, and make them do certain things. Especially in the databases and in the REST APIs, these are important, but you can use them in games, in different places where coding exists. And this is very, very beautiful concept in Python, the classes and the modules, and the way you can use them in order to have a certain architecture and somehow manage different variables and objects and kind of frames, where you can put in different features of a variable, different properties, and manage them.